Well, it looks like President Trump is trying to redeem gun owners and doing something for the very first time, something we have never seen, at least not in our lifetime, nor may we ever see this again, to be quite honest with you, in restoring these gun rights to these kinds of people. Now, you hear me say that, maybe that sounds a little off or something bad about it, but I promise, just stick with me. I'm going to tell you exactly what President Trump and the DOJ is trying to do for gun owners right now. And I want to point out the hypocrisy that's being called out on the other side of this, because there's a lot of people that are fuming at the fact that President Trump would even consider doing something like this, especially when it comes to guns. But we're going to point out just how hypocritical it is for people to point this out. I'm going to give you some examples of just how ridiculous this argument is if you replace the word gun or gun rights with some of our other common freedoms. So I'd love to hear your opinion afterwards. Let me know what you think about this whole thing down below. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Attorney General Pam Bondi announced that they are looking to come up with a new rule that will restore the rights to anybody that has been convicted of a felony of 1 year or greater, or some misdemeanors of 2 years or greater, at least when it comes to people that have been convicted of nonviolent crimes. Now, they will be barred along with some people that do some of the more unspeakable crimes out there and illegal immigrants. Now, when have you ever seen even pro-gun presidents over the past 30, 40 years ever made an attempt to offer second chances to people that broke the law? Now, you may be saying right now to yourself, dude, if you break the law, then you have to pay for the consequences. And I agree. But do you have to pay for an entire lifetime and lose your Second Amendment rights forever, even after you've paid the crime with your time? Before you answer that though, let's look at why, in my belief, in my opinion, that this is wrong on so many levels. First of all, there's a certain rehabilitation part of prison for people as well, right? We want these people to come back out into society. We say, okay, you've paid for this crime with your time, and now you're ready to integrate back out. One of the problems I see with the entire prison system, though, is the fact that we attach everything that they used to do to now their current situation as well. So when it comes to employment, which is one of the more primary issues you see with people trying to reintegrate back into society, hey, you did your time, great job. But every job you try to get from here on out, unless they are just super forgiving of this type of thing, they don't really run background checks, or you're starting your own business, then the chances of getting a good job are going to be slim to none. Some people reintegrate back out, they start at the very bottom, they work themselves back up. And there's nothing wrong with that, but why do we still attach that stigma to them all these years later? It's almost like there's a disconnect between the rehabilitation part and the fact that you just have to pay for that crime. We say that you absolutely have to pay for that crime, and again, I agree, but the whole rehabilitation part and getting these things potentially removed off of your record, I just don't even see a real reason why we should keep it on people's records, especially when they're going for jobs. We want them to come back into society. It benefits all of us, right, with their tax dollars as well, that they're going to be contributing back into society, and yet we still keep this ball and chain around them for whatever reason. And of course, this comes down to stigma. For example, right, you don't want somebody that stole pharmaceuticals to go back in the medical system, or somebody that stole thousands and thousands of dollars worth of merchandise to go into retail. So at what point do we say, okay, this person is rehabilitated enough where we can remove the ball and chain, so that way it doesn't prevent them from future employment in one of these areas for the rest of their lives? And you may say, hey, these people are breaking the law. I've never broken a single law in my life, which we all know is untrue, by the way. We've all broken laws. It just depends on really who gets caught. And of course, as we age, we get smarter about the things that we do, at least most of us. But if you look at some of the crimes that people lose their Second Amendment rights for forever, they can be downright silly. There's some really serious ones, okay? But there's also things like tax evasion. Okay, that's not great, right? I'm somebody, I like to get taxes out of the way before April 15th, right? That's just something that I've always done. And until then, I normally have a little anxiety that goes along with it because I just want to get it done. Somebody new started a business, 18 years old, content creator, I don't know, whatever. They realize, oh, well, I don't have to pay taxes. I'm making all this money, and then they didn't file. I don't know. You know, you see this all the time with celebrities as well. I'm not saying this is right, but people come into a bunch of money, they don't file their taxes, they end up owing a bunch, they file for bankruptcy, they owe a bunch of money, or maybe not. But these are things that I guess at one point we could have all fallen into, just depending on your situation. Okay, here's another one. Illegal hunting or fishing. Now, this does not necessarily mean that you're out there poaching freaking polar bears. That's kind of an extreme example. Anyways, you could literally have a mess of fish and none of them were over the legal limit. Is that a really crappy thing to do? Yes. Should you know those laws? Absolutely. Should you be responsible with it? Sure. Should you lose your gun rights forever because a DNR officer ended up catching you and charging you with a serious crime when it comes to hurting wildlife? You should pay for that, but not with your 2A rights for the rest of your life. Here's one, lying on a government form. You may say, well, I don't fill out a lot of those. Well, a lot of college students do. 18, 19-year-olds, they're signing up for big-time loans. They have no clue the repercussions from that, and maybe they lie on the FAFSA. Pretty sure that's a felony, actually. So this is something that, yes, potentially you could lose your gun rights for. Does it happen all the time? No, but it is something that could happen. Driving with a suspended license, maybe writing a bad check or a few bad checks. These are not great things that people should be doing, but they're also mistakes. And it's really easy to look at somebody that's made a lifetime worth of mistakes and think, man, whew, I'm glad I'm not like that person. But just understand that, again, we've all been in situations, whether you were super young or not, where if you did get caught doing the thing you did, maybe you would have lost your gun rights. Sometimes it comes down to just being lucky enough to not have your stupidity shown out into the public. For instance, when I was growing up, it was on the cusp of everybody pretty much having cameras and phones and stuff like that. I mean, I was just out of high school and, pretty much everybody had phones at that point. Frickin' Nokias, they're built like bricks, you guys have heard of them. But not everybody had a camera in their pocket. Now, I mean, you really can't get away with pretty much anything. If there was apps on my phone at that time to tell my parents every single place that I went, that wouldn't have been as fun, let's just put that out there. I can remember one of the very first things my dad ever told me when I got my very first truck. That truck better not ever hit the mud. What was one of the first things I did? 2 o'clock in the morning after getting off at a shift at Sonic Drive-In, went to a mud hole, got it stuck, mud slung everywhere, took it to a car cleaner, got it cleaned up really quick. Next day, my dad didn't even notice. They knew where I was. That would have really sucked, right? I'm just saying that there's a lot more pressure on people now, and there's a lot more cameras everywhere on every single thing that you do. And so it's really easy to throw those stones, but just remember things that you've done in your own life. And there has to be a path in order to get these rights back. They're just too important. Again, these are not second-class rights that we're talking about. This is the right to self-preservation. And so creating a path or creating a rule that gives people their rights back, in my opinion, is something that is so fantastic. And again, I can't see too many other presidents even considering something like this. I mean, imagine if we let people out of prison and we said, okay, you can never vote again. There's no path to get those rights back. You can't go to your church. You can't talk about God in public. Freedom of speech is super restricted. You can't be trusted to have a family, own a home, or even run a business. In my opinion, there's a lot stacked up against these people, and I even used to work with one, man. The guy made so much money per year, but 30 years prior, he had made it wasn't a simple possession, but it was something along those lines. And this guy was one of the most successful people I have ever met in my life. And guess what? 30 years later, he still could not own a gun. There are some people that just cannot be restored. Let's just be honest about this. But there's a heck of a lot more. In my opinion, if given the path to be able to find restoration, to reintegrate back into society, could be a lot more benefit to our society than some of the same people we try to protect that shouldn't be here in the first place. America is built on second chances, especially for our own people. And sometimes we treat people from other countries way better than we treat our own. That's just my opinion, though. I'd love to hear yours. I think this is a great move by the Trump administration. But just remember, we're going to be calling out the good things that Trump does, and hopefully there's a lot more of those than the bad things. But we got to call them both out. This one, in my opinion, is a great move, and I hope it goes through. I'll keep you guys up to date. I want to hear your opinion as well. Let me know what you think down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. See you in the next one. And as always, hold 'em down.